Hello. Today we're going to go to California and start with some Californian architecture. So this is Case Study Houses, which is a book in French for whatever reason, but it documents an important competition that a magazine ran in the 40s, inviting architects to design homes. Some of these were never built, some were built. Some of them eventually were demolished because they were very high maintenance kind of buildings, but they were sort of prime examples of modernism and modern architecture applied to the Californian weather, which is a weather I currently wish I was seeing a little bit more of. Very, very beautiful, interesting houses. Architects like Richard Neutra, the Eames also got to build one of their houses. Very atmospheric in a way, and very Hollywood friendly homes were built, some of which you can also still see in the movies. This is a kind of a very famous one, which you'll definitely recognize. A really nice insight into architecture and Los Angeles more specifically is through the film Los Angeles Plays Itself, which is a 3+ hour long documentary, but is really amazing, and I really recommend that. Another sort of important pillar of Californian design is, of course, the Eames, and this is one of 2 books that I have of their work. And the world of Rail and Charles Eames is really good. You know, it's the usual, here's a bunch of really beautiful things and here's some historic context around it. And if you are an industrial design student, it's kind of impossible not to have heard of their work. But the imagery is also interesting because there's a lot of work in progress, a lot of the detail behind each project. The bit I'm most interested in, and I think the bit that is talked about the least, is the beginning of their career, the beginning of their couple, them as people, behind the myth and the mythology of their practice. So there's a little bit in here, not as much as I'd like, but I have another one which is way too big, which I will link to, that has a little bit more about this. And then I'll end with, I think from California, it's always nice to go somewhere else with nice weather, so Australia. And this is Sunday's Kitchen, which is part history book, part cookbook about John and Sunday Reed, who were patrons to the arts in Australia outside of Melbourne, in a suburb on a farmland that they decided to take over called Heidi. And they lived in the farmhouse for a long time. They eventually built up a building next to it, which was a modernist building. So very beautiful interiors. And eventually they opened up even a 3rd building, which became a museum, which you can visit when you can visit things, which is not now. And the book is really interesting because it both depicts their lives. They were connected, of course, as rich people often are, to a lot of artists, a lot of musicians, people who became very important Australian artists, and they helped them. They housed them. People would come and stay for long periods of time. Sidney Nolan was an artist that essentially was able to develop his whole first pieces of work by staying with them. And so that role of both the designer, the artist, but also the people who actually bankroll the work, as it were, I think is as important as the work itself. And there's a huge amount of like very beautiful little recipes because Sunday Reed loved to host and loved to cook. So on that note, have a great weekend and enjoy.